Hi there! So, my name is Ashlyn Harbinger, and today I'm going to be talking about what it's like to get top surgery in 2022, at least from my perspective. Now, I've already done a part 1 to this video. That's kind of more of what the insurance side of it was like. That was before I've actually had the surgery. Now that I have had surgery, this is going to be more of the whole king caboodle. I'm going to break down what it was like to get to this point. I'm going to break down what it's like now that I've had it. Basically, an all-encompassing experience reflectively of what I've experienced. So I'm going to break this down to 5 parts that I think are going to make it a lot easier to follow through, and I'll put time notes or timestamps in the video below. So if you want to just skip to the point that you want, that is a-okay. So the 5 I'm going to have it go down to is my initial expectations when I first started this whole process, what it was like to actually get the surgery to happen, the day of, and the recovery that was soon after the day of, what post-op was like, and then the last part will be my final impressions and thoughts of the entire surgery as a whole. So to start off with, my initial expectations for having top surgery, I mean, like, when I was a kid and I heard about gender reassignment surgery, I always thought that, like, 2 willing participants each just exchanged parts. That's not how it happens. Tissue has to actually be able to be received by the body, and if it doesn't, it'll be rejected. So when SRS and any gender conforming surgery is happening, it's either using the tissue you already have or it's adding something like an implant. So going into this, I knew that I was going to get implants, but I honestly didn't expect I'd get as much as I did. I had A cups going into this, so I was kind of hoping, for like a B, something realistic. At some point, my doctor told me that I'd get a D when I was like way in the early stages of figuring this out. But I kind of expected that more so than anything, I would just have more, right? It wouldn't necessarily be that like, oh, now I'm like a double F cup or something ridiculous like that. I more so just wanted it to be that I didn't have cones anymore, because for a lot of people, when you start going on hormone replacement therapy, from my understanding, you get stuck in a certain Tanner stage, which is a stage of breast development. When that happens, you're kind of just in a stage where your boobs just look like cones all the time. I didn't want that anymore. That was just the part I didn't like the most. I liked having something, but I just wish it could look like it was in its final legs of development. So aside from that, what else happened? I was kind of game for whatever, like, I know so many people go into top surgery with the expectation of you're gonna have like porn star boobs, and that happens, like, in my experience, doctors are pretty good at what they do. But that being said, I think keeping expectations reasonable is very important, because you're not always going to get this amazing result. Like, you're still just a person. And my understanding, and I found this to be true, was that all people just have different looking boobs, and there's no right way to have boobs, like, everyone kind of has parts of their body they like wish they would change. And even having SRS, same thing can happen. You can still get the boobs that you want, but it might not look exactly as you expect, because as it turns out, even when they add an implant, each person's individual body type is unique. For example, I have a larger diaphragm, so for me, my implants had to be larger, which I was thinking more of like a B to a C. I ended up in a C+, low D territory, which was completely fine. But like, going into that understanding that like your body is different, and so you're gonna get a different result, that's where I was at, and that's kind of what happened, so that was good. I think part of it for me was this idea that after I had surgery, I went into the expectation that it would be done, right? I had this idea that once surgery was all over, that, oh man, I'd finally have the boobs. And that's not true. And I didn't know that at the time, but it takes time for your breasts to set after having breast augmentation. So that was a bit of a dissonance from my expectation versus reality. That being said, we'll just start what it was like to get surgery to happen. This part, it has been hard for me because this really could just be its own video. And I mean like an hour and a half long. Getting surgery to happen took so long for me. First, you have to be on hormone replacement therapy. Second, you have to have a doctor testify that hormone replacement therapy isn't enough to alleviate gender dysphoria. I guess technically second is you have to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Then you have to find insurance that will cover you, or just be rich and have a lot of money. Then you have to find a doctor that will take you. Then you have to be accepted by that doctor. Then you have to get a letter from your therapist proving that the hormone replacement therapy wasn't enough. Then you have to get another letter from your therapist with an entire breakdown proving that you have gender dysphoria. Then you have to get time off of work. Then you have to get down there for the surgery. You also have to get down there for the first inspection of your boobs. Like, you have to get a physical done. And for me, that meant I had to get a physical done. I had to have an initial consultation. I had to talk to my own general practitioners to make sure that the surgery aligned up with their expectations. Then I had to get another pre-op physical and overall health evaluation done by another person. Then I had to get a letter from my hormone replacement doc. Then insurance denied me like 3 times, so we had to change a bunch of all of that we had already done like 3 times. Then I had to get a COVID test, and it's just so much work. Like, it's so much work. For anyone who thinks that like transitioning is just a fancy fleeting of the mind, and you just happen to have a spirit of the moment and you decide that you actually want to be the different gender and you're just gonna make it happen, it's such bullshit. For anyone who's actually transitioned could tell you, it takes so much planning and time. For me, it took 4 years to get to this point. Now, everyone's timeline is different, so I don't know what yours might look like or someone else's, so take that with a grain of salt. But it takes so much time, and I promise you, when you are going through all of that and spending loads of money, you have had tons of time to think about whether this was the right surgery for you. Yeah, I also did a lot of research ahead of time to kind of get myself ready for what surgery was going to be like and for my expectations. That for me is in the umbrella of getting surgery to happen because I had to be ready for it. Physically and mentally, it's a very taxing thing on your body. So I did a lot of work with my therapist ahead of time to front load that work. Oh, one thing that I did forget about initial expectations that I really do want to cover on right now is the idea that I never went into this thinking that it would solve all my problems. I never, ever did that. I knew that gender reassignment surgery would help me with my dysphoria, and it did. But as it turns out, that's not everything. As it turns out, having a body and being a person, everyone has problems. So if you go into this expecting that your depression's gonna be gone, that you'll no longer be anxious, that whatever childhood trauma you might have will just suddenly evaporate, that your day-to-day will just be completely easy and a breeze, is bullcrap. Because there are plenty of people who are cis and have these body parts and struggle every single day. And that's normal. Being a person means that you have obstacles constantly. It doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter like your status in life, everyone has problems. And I never expected that this surgery would fix them all. But my mentality that it would help with one really, really important thing. I really recommend going in with this mentality. Surgery isn't a be-all end-all. A lot of our problems stem from, like, in my opinion, a lack of communication with other people, not understanding, like, your own bullshit and putting it on other people to fix. You have to handle your own self before any of this is done. That was my expectation, and that's something that I worked a lot with my therapist to make sure I was ready for, which helped me be ready for when the surgery actually happened, right? So now moving into the day of surgery, for me meant that I had to drive for 4 hours to my surgery site. I live in Minnesota, so I had to get to the Twin Cities. That's where my surgery center was. And I had to be there the day early, so we had to get a hotel. We were there for a total of 2, technically 3 days. So we left the third morning, got there the morning of the first. So whatever that equals out to you. So we had to get a hotel room. I had to get a COVID test the day before. I got my results back. I was told if I did not test negative, that if I tested positive, they would have to reschedule the whole thing. And the only way they could know whether, like, I was positive the day of was to take it the day before. So I really recommend quarantining really hardcore before you go into this. A lot of these surgery centers are for people who are going through really intense medical and health things. And if they get sick while they're in the operating room, they're already in a very susceptible spot. So in my experience, they would refuse to take me in that instance. So I got my COVID test. My COVID test came back all right. I had to take, I had this thing called Hibby Cleanse, which is essentially a surgical scrub. I had to scrub myself down the night before. I was only allowed to have clear liquids until, like, I think it was like 10 p.m. the night before, and then nothing the morning of. I had to scrub myself again with Hibby Cleanse the day after. I had to get off my patch 2 weeks beforehand. A lot of places will make you get off of hormone replacement therapy before you get onto these surgeries, because hormone replacement therapy does, even if marginally, increase your risk of clot. And what we don't want is people dying on the operating floor. So usually you have to get off of hormones before you have surgery, which is hard. You know, you're trying to do something that's gender congruent, and to do so, you have to get off of your hormones. And for a lot of people, you know, it's a very, for me, it was a very depressing and isolating time. I couldn't be around anyone. I had to be off of my hormones. I had to take all this time off of work, you know, like not being able to socialize, not being able to look the way you want to look. It's just tough, you know? And going into surgery, you know, I had one person who could be in the preoperative room for 10 minutes. That was it. Like, they were very strict on that. So you're pretty isolated through the whole thing. I also wasn't allowed to shave my chest the day before because they didn't want any micro cuts. If you get like a micro cut, I think there's a different word for that. Whatever. If you get one of those, you put yourself at more risk of having an infection later. So that was a no-go. I showed up at the surgery center at like 7 a.m. We were told surgery would start at 9. Surgery started at 1:10 p.m. I think. Like we were waiting for a long time, to the point where I actually thought maybe they had just forgotten about us. And then, man, it all happened so fast. Like, you wait in this giant room with a bunch of people who are all either waiting to have a very important surgery or waiting for someone who is having an important surgery. And you could just hear a pin drop, you know? It's so tense. And so when you're in this environment for like 4 or 5 hours, it's a little stressful. I recommend bringing something with you that's like comforting. Like, I don't know, your favorite book, your favorite handheld video game, I don't know, a craft. That's what I did. It really helped me to calm down a lot, so that when I actually was walking in for the surgery itself, I felt pretty relaxed, actually. But yeah, we waited for a long time. Then there's like a big board that has all these different colors. It's like green is when you're out of care, red is in the middle of surgery, orange is getting ready for surgery, yellow's they're gonna come and take you back. And so you're just waiting for your little card to switch, and you wait a long time in my experience. But then I went in there. I had a talk with my doctor. He took out Sharpies, and he took out 3 different colors. It was like a black, a red, and a blue one. And he was like, I had no shirt on at the time. I was in like one of those surgical gowns. And he's like, can I just draw on your chest? I was like, yeah, you can draw on my chest. And so he just started drawing all these measurements all around to get ready for when he was going to make his incisions, and getting ready for, like, they do a special technique at the place I went to where they actually can choose your nipple placement. And so he was like, okay, I have to carry the 2, do the 1. Okay, then your nipple will end up here and that will be symmetrical with the other one. Like that kind of thing, which was, it was a whole new experience just having someone do math on my boobs. So I was in the back with that. They went through my whole medical history, everything again. They hooked me up with like a ton of IVs and stuff like that. I remember I had like one over here, I think one over here. And then the one I hate the most is they put one in the wrist. It's so uncomfortable to me. But they put one right there as well. And I had a little bit of time to talk, ask any more questions, talk to my partner, which was nice. They were only allowed to be in there for a little bit, but having the support was huge. It was just massive for me. So that happened. And then they finally were like, oh, okay, you're ready. And they gave me what they called was a mild sedative. And they said, it's just gonna make you a little drowsy. And then we're gonna take you into the operating room. You'll meet the anesthesiologist. And then they'll do a countdown from 10 to 1. They'll put on your favorite music, that kind of thing. I'm gonna level with you. I don't remember leaving the hallway. I remember getting into the hallway and them telling me this, and then I woke up 5 hours later. That was it. I didn't talk to any anesthesiologist. I didn't hear any countdown. Maybe they put on my favorite music. I don't remember any of it. And then when I woke up 4 hours later, I had boobs. And going from an A cup to like a near D cup was startling. It was a lot. Because I was in like a lot of pain. They had me in a surgical bra. I still had some like padding where the sutures were in case I bled. And I was sore. I was very sore because for me, they took the implant and they slid it under the muscle. And for me, that meant that at the end of the day, I have a much more natural result from my understanding. I'm not a doctor, this is what I was told. But at the same time, I had a lot of muscle spasms because it's literally under my muscle, which, was intense. They woke me up and they were like, you gotta go. And they put me in a wheelchair, and there was the local pharmacy that's in the hospital. We picked up my meds, which was like an antibiotic, some like morphine or some painkiller, and an anti-spasm, muscle spasm drug. Picked all that up. I got into a taxi, and then we went home. We went to the apartment, or not the apartment, my God, the hotel room. And it was, it was sore. It's hard walking around. You're not used to your body weight at that time. I was still loopy from the drugs. Like, it was all blur to me. I got to the hotel room. My partner was there helping me the whole way. After surgery, because it's right here, I wasn't allowed to lift anything more than 5 pounds because they don't want you to tear your sutures. And it was also very hard for me to put on shirts. So ahead of time, we bought a lot of bun-up shirts because I couldn't put anything over on top of me because I couldn't move my arms up like that, which was hard because I had this really limited mobility. I was in a lot of pain. When you first get out of surgery, it doesn't feel, for me at least, conforming yet. Like, you go through this whole process hoping to finally be like, oh yeah, my body. But it feels like you just have massive implants, and like you have something taped to your chest. It didn't feel like me at that point, which was hard because I had just gone through this surgery. I was off of hormones. I was isolated for a long time. And my body felt weird and new, which I guess is just like puberty if you just went through that way. Like it takes time for anyone to get used to it, is the point I'm trying to make. That this isn't a uniquely trans experience. It's not like just trans people have this experience where they're like, whoa, my body's weird and different and I'm getting used to it. That's just going through life, you know? And that's normal. So it wasn't a new thing, but it was definitely took a little bit of getting used to. I slept a lot that night, like a lot. After surgery, I wasn't allowed to get any water on the wound, but I still had to take a shower to keep myself clean. The big reason for this is that if you don't keep yourself clean, you pose the risk of having an infection. If you get an infection, that is the worst possible case scenario, because it usually means they have to take your implants out of you, which after all of that hard work is like, you know, it's crushing. So I did every single step that they gave me. When they told me to do something, I did it for like 2 months extra, you know, just to absolutely make sure that I was putting myself in the best position that I could to recover as well as I could. But that night, you know, I slept just through the whole thing. I think I watched like One Piece on my phone, slept some more, watched some more One Piece. Then it was 2 p.m. the next day. My partner bought me a wrap or a salad. It was a Caesar something. I ate that, fell asleep again, just rinse and repeat, right? Like you're just so out of it, just recovering from this major ordeal. And then the next day, early in the morning, we went home. And then recovery after that was moving into my experience post-op. Recovery after that was just a lot of bed rest for like 2 weeks. I think I took 2 weeks off of work, went back right after that. First 2 weeks were really rough. After that, I felt fine to go back to work. I was kind of getting bored. Binged a lot of TV, did a lot of self-care. I needed a lot of help because, you know, I couldn't pour water from our water pitcher. I couldn't make a sandwich because I couldn't hold a plate. I couldn't hold my cats. It was just a lot, you know, there are a lot of things you can't do. On top of that, it's really hard because no one explained this to me, but because they put the implants under your boobs, you have muscle spasms, right? Well, getting out of bed in the morning, you have to lean up. When you do that, you are using these muscles. That hurts like a son of a bitch. It hurts so much, and I'd get muscle spasms every single time. And man, it was wildly unpleasant, you know? It was very wildly unpleasant. I was told by my doctor to get like this mineral oil that I, to this day, put on the scar line to help it fade and not be as prominent. I gotta be honest, I don't know how much it's working. I still have a scar. I don't know if it's supposed to make it go away completely or just make it less prominent. The hard part is I put the oil on. I don't know what it would look like if I hadn't put the oil on. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it would have looked a lot worse. I have no idea. There's also like an anti-scar cream you can get, but I was reading reviews online and everyone hated it and everyone liked the oil. So I just went with the oil, but maybe the scar cream is better. I don't know. I couldn't have my cats around me that much for the first like week, I think, because my cats like to jump on my chest at night because they're assholes. And I just couldn't do that. You know, like for obvious reasons, I couldn't do that. You know, I had a lot of support from my friends and family. Everyone looked after me. I had a very close social circle through this whole thing of just people being supportive and loving and caring, and that made the whole process so much easier, you know? Just being able to talk to people about what I was going through, having people listen, and having people just like be nice to me when I'm in so much pain was awesome. It was honestly a necessity that I highly recommend. You know, making sure you have a razor tight support system going into this, because no one's an island and no one can do this on their own. It's too much, You know, it's so much, especially now in the world with so much hate towards trans people. You really need everyone in your corner that you can get. So I recommend getting those people and making sure that you value them, because there's no reason for the people in your life to stay around you if you're an asshole. You know, no one has the obligation to have to be there. So making sure that you are respecting the people who are respecting you is very important. But I think that was kind of everything. I did a lot of journaling at the time, see how I was feeling. I was told 3 months later that at the 3-month mark, my implants would be set, and they were. At that point onward, I would say that my boobs really felt like me. They felt like me, and they still do. I got to wear a lot of bras, which was awesome. I've always wanted to be able to wear a bra. I know that might not seem like the most crazy thing in the world, but like having one and having one that fits you is an experience I've always wanted. And it felt awesome at first, and it feels awesome every day. You know, the amount of euphoria that I get every single day is just amazing. But like whenever I get to put a bra on and it fits well, and I see myself in the mirror, or I get to just wake up and I feel that weight, you know, on my chest, and it feels right. It's such a new experience for me. It just makes every day so much easier and gives me so much more energy. It's not to say I don't have any problems. I do. Everyone does. But I can handle them. And this is one less huge thing that I have to deal with on a constant daily basis. Speaking of which, I had to get a lot of bras right away because I had to keep the area clean, which meant that I had to have like a new bra on almost every other day to make sure I was avoiding infection as much as I could. I had it where I got like a big scab where like a pool of blood pooled. And that was concerning for a bit, but I was told it was a normal thing, not to worry about it. But I was concerned, but being able to talk to my doctors, we have My Chart is like the service that they use, and you can like message them. Being able to do that was amazing. Like, because I had worries. I was like, is it healing right? Is this how it's supposed to look? Am I getting an infection? I was just able to ask all those questions, and that made my life so much easier. And I highly recommend that any question you have, no matter how silly it seems, ask it. That's what your doctors are there for. That's their purpose, is to make sure that you get the care that you need and that you get the aftercare that you need. Because the aftercare is just care, you know? You just need that. So making sure that you use the resources that are available to you will make this entire experience so much easier. And I highly recommend that. So moving into the final stage of this video, I'm going to talk about my final impressions, thoughts, feelings, whatever. This whole experience was a roller coaster. It was wild. Like, the amount of stress that I went through when like insurance bounced or getting time off of work. And I mean, this is expensive. You know, like I had to get time down to the cities. That's expensive. I had to get time off of work. That's expensive. I had to get food when I'm in the cities. You know, it all adds up. For that reason, it was very stressful. You know, like my body was undergoing this massive change all at once. And for anyone, that's hard. You know, whoever says that trans people aren't allowed to have like doubt or worry or any of that, it's bullshit. Because trans people are just people. Any kind of surgery that you would have on the planet, it's normal to have a bit of doubt or fear or worry. That's normal. You're going under the knife. It's an intense procedure. If you had a knee replacement surgery, you could be asking yourself for years, did I do the right thing? You know? That's how it is for any kind of procedure. And so having this crazy expectation be put onto trans people that you're not allowed to feel any of that. You're not allowed to have any doubt, any shame, any guilt, but you also should be ashamed of yourself, but you shouldn't be, is so ridiculous. Like, it's okay to be human, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You're just a human, and you're going through a massive, massive experience. When that happens, it's stressful for anyone. That's normal. That doesn't mean you did the wrong thing, right? It just means that it's a normal, stressful experience. But going in with the understanding that it's going to be stressful, that it's going to be intense, that you might be depressed when you're in a ton of pain, can't move, and you're isolated from everyone. Going in with those expectations is massive, because when it happens, it makes sense. It's according to plan, I guess. Would I get this surgery again? Yes, I would. And I probably might have to, because implants are only good for so long. Some people can make them last their whole lives. Sometimes people need like 4 different implants in their life. All depends. But the amount of euphoria that I've had has just been great. Like going through life being happy to be in your body is amazing. I've always been trans. That's never not been the case. But having shame and doubt and worry and guilt, there are so many forces in play in this world that are trying to make you feel ashamed of being trans, to make it feel like being trans is something new and like a fad and like it's not real and you're faking it. It's bullshit. There have been trans people on this planet as long as there have been people on this planet. It's fine, But the stigma getting to you is also just a part of being a person. When there's so much stigma out there, having to confront and deal with it is an unfortunate side effect of it, but it's a burden that we have to deal with. And it's one that I dealt with. Having a great therapist is helpful. Having great friends, super helpful. Journaling, self-care, get your self-care down. I'd say this process is so intense that you need to know how to care for yourself, because you're your number one best friend. Aside from anyone else, you need to be taking care of yourself first. And you can't expect other people to be the ones who are going to take on all of that burden. You have to be ready to go the full length of the journey, but to know that you're not doing it alone. That's what I think this is all about, right? I love everything that happened. It was tough. And at the same time, I wouldn't change any of it for the world. Being able to see a congruency between what I see and who I am it's something that like we have to put so much time, effort, energy, and money into, Like for this entire experience, I probably spent like just out of pocket $4,000 or $5,000. It's an insane amount of money for each and everything that a lot of people don't have to do, period. And I think people forget about that, yeah, it's great to transition, but these are years of my life that I have to devote to this goal. And it takes so much effort and energy, and I could have done so many other things. I could have gone out, hung out with my friends. I could have, gone to a concert somewhere I wouldn't have, but I could have. That's money and time and effort that could have gone so many other places, but I put myself first. And ultimately, I'm more happy that I did that than anything else. And I couldn't recommend it enough. 2022 is such a year of trans hatred. And unfortunately, that type of hatred towards minority groups is not a new thing on this planet. But it does make life a lot harder. What I would say is stand your ground. Stand up tall. Go with confidence. And know that you know what's best for yourself. These people who hate you and spout all this rhetoric are probably not reliable sources of information. The people who care and respect about you as is, innately, without conditions, are probably the people you should be listening to. And that includes yourself. Take care of yourself. Love yourself. It's a bumpy ride, but it gets better. That's my whole experience. That's my whole video. My voice is getting shot. So I'm gonna say take care, and until next time, I'll see ya.